Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Friday, March 23rd meeting of the Reno City Council. Wow, got a little reverberation going on here. At this time, if we could get Mr. Flansburgh, you've been very, very busy. Can you lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. Please join me in the pledge.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. If you'll please take the roll.
Yes, Madam Vice Mayor. Breckus, Dewar, absent at this time. Delgado, McKenzie, Jordan,
Here.
Bobseen, Sheevy, absent at this time. Madam Vice Mayor, you do have a quorum of the Reno City Council.
Thank you very much. This time we'll move into general public comment. First, general public comment.
Vice Mayor, first public comment is from Jeff Church, followed by Barry Lynn.
Good morning, everyone. Jeff Church. I do run a website, renotaxrevolt.com. I'd like you to take a look. And I am a candidate for the Washoe County School District. And I'm not here to talk about that today, although if you are thinking in your capacity of endorsing anybody, I would ask you to chat with me first. One individual said, well, you're too conservative. And I said, well, I may be your best bad choice, but I think I'm the only good choice. But what I'm here to talk about today is the flood ballot tax. It's going to be on the 2018 November ballot. It's a $400 million tax. It's an increase in property tax that raises your property tax over the 3% constitutional cap. So I want you to be aware of it. You know, it's election year. You're probably going to be asked to take a position on that. And I think we just need to say no to this one. Not 1 cent of that tax will go to North Valleys, to the flooded North Valleys. It's entirely Truckee River. We already pay a sales tax for that. We pay sales tax for flood. They have to live within their means. And I also want to point out that we do pay RTC tax. If you've bought gas lately, you know, we're 40 cents higher than Carson City. That RTC tax could also be used to build some of those bridges and the levees that would be associated with that. So there are alternatives. I also want to point out that some of the alternatives would be, you know, can we build a reservoir upstream? And one of the most important things is what's called the Vista Narrows. The Vista Narrows is the #1 cause of flooding. It backs everything up. We can do that in increments. We don't have to spend this $400 million property tax increase. We can use our existing taxes. And there's also a thing, especially for Sparks, called general fund. So they have money. There are alternatives. So I have a handout for you to look at. Like Mike Komirski of Edon said, you just gave us your playbook. I said, yeah, that's the way I am. I want to be up front. These are the issues that you're going to be facing when this goes on the ballot, and you're going to be challenged to endorse or not endorse, you know, that ballot measure. I also want to point out there's a lands bill going through Congress that has traction. It's possible we could do some land swap where the people that are in the floodplain are offered land that we're going to get through this land swap, you know, and then we turn that area into parks and rec. I envision a horse path, a bike path going all the way to Fernley. You know, think about the future. So once again, you're going to be faced, unless there's litigation, that's going to be on the 2018 ballot for November. It is a $400 million property tax, and it raises the tax above the 3% cap. So just want to make you aware of that and make the voters aware. Thank you very much. Have a great morning.
Okay, thank you. Do we have Ms. Barry Lynn?
Followed by Tom Dunn.
Thank you.
Good morning, City Council. I guess the mayor's not here, so I won't address her. My name is Barry Lynn, and I'm here today to talk to you about 435 Moran Street. This is a property that is just adjacent to Stewart Park in the Wells Avenue neighborhood. And this was a problem property for many years. I live in this neighborhood. We worked with Alex Woodley on this for many years. It had a devastating fire in 2001. And it sat vacant for many, many years, over a decade. It was a problem for the neighborhood, and the owner was one of our motel owners. He's actually somebody that I've developed a relationship with and have a good working relationship with. we came up with a solution to address this property, and this property was literally just a skeleton. It was a shell. It was burned out beyond belief. So we worked with Claudia Hansen, Alex Woodley, Jessica Sferaza, Jody, I can't remember her last name, and we came up with a plan where the city of Reno would buy this property and get a HUD grant to redevelop it, and then it was resold to a nonprofit who provides housing to extremely low-income seniors who are either living on the street or in motels. So I was the real estate agent on this property. This was in 2012. I represented the city of Reno in the acquisition of this property, and I handled all of the negotiations for, with the property owner. And not once did the idea of demolition come up, ever, in this. It was never mentioned, and now I'm hearing with properties like 265 Keystone that because we can't keep the homeless out and because there was a fire that we have to demolish it. And so I just want to point out that this is an example of how the city was involved. You have the tax sheet in front of you showing that the city bought it and then redeveloped it and then resold it. So I'd like to know, why are we not looking at this type of collaboration for severely blighted properties? Why are we rushing so quickly to tear them down? This was only 5.5 years ago. This has been a win-win-win for the community, for sustainability, for keeping all of this out of the landfill, and also for the people who are not homeless, who are living there. They've also become valued members of the neighborhood and the community. And I want to remind you about the Urban Land Institute study that said that the Park Lane site was a detriment to the city because it was the first thing that people see when they leave the airport. Right now, 4th Street, when people get off at Keystone, is going to be the same thing. And I think if you talk to the mayors of Detroit, Atlantic City, Buffalo, that they'll tell you that tearing down blighted buildings only replaces one problem with another. Vacant lots are a problem in downtown. There's only 2 reasons why a building should be torn down, and that is immediate plans to redevelop or if it's structurally unsound. And I guess I'm out of time, but I have a lot more to say, so you'll be hearing more from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Tom Dunn, followed by Sam Dene.
Good morning, members of the council, Madam City Manager. For the record, Tom Dunn, representing the men and women of the Reno Firefighters Association. Little known factoid, I was a firefighter on that fire on Stewart Street way back in the day, so almost 20 years ago now. 3 minutes. 3 minutes is the average time a fire victim has to evacuate their home to avoid injury in a fire. After that, chances of survival decrease exponentially as a fire doubles in size every minute. We currently have 2 fire stations that provide no fire service. These stations are located in 2 districts that have the highest threat of wildland-urban interface fires in Reno. On top of that urban interface, these 2 districts have some of the highest concentration of seniors residing in our city. Currently, average fire response times in these areas are well outside the city's adopted response times. Staffing these stations with fire engines can cut those response times by 1/2. In the fire service, response time is everything. And we can continue to delay response to senior members of this community that may not be as easy able to evacuate in timely manner as such. How can we provide fire service to the rest of our community? Should these citizens receive the same timely service that the rest of the city receives? This council recently instructed the fire chief to explore options to work more effectively with other jurisdictions to provide better fire service. And while that's an excellent idea, how can we do that if we haven't taken care of our own house first? Isn't it far-fetched to say that 5 minutes is easily the difference between current fire response times in District 7 and 19, and the response times if we provide fire engines in these stations? 5 minutes can be the difference between a simple mattress fire and a home burning to the ground. And it can also be the difference between life and death. A safe city is a prosperous city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
Sam Dene.
Sam, DNA Dene, that's me. The heart and soul and the body and mind of Reno government. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate. I have the gravitas in the background, 25 years of excoriating and castigating bureaucrats and media wacko freaks. I could go on and on. I am viable, living proof that the vote-stealing traitors in this community are successful, because if there was an honest election, I would be up on the dais instead of here at the podium. But there's a lot of people who tell me they'd rather have me at the podium watching over these bureaucrats and especially the media wacko freaks. I'm responsible. By the way, when the mayor is missing, people want to know, where's the mayor? You might tell people what happened with the mayor. She's been missing from a few meetings recently. Nice haircut, Mr. McKenzie over there. By the way, and also the, I like it when we have law enforcement over here to protect me against perfidiousness that might be taking place in this empty audience today. Everybody's really excited. I guess they figure since I'm down here, nobody else needs to come because I handle all these problems. I'm responsible for 92% of the good things about Reno. Actually, now it's 93%. Just day before yesterday, I castigated and excoriated the people behind this boondoggle, billion-dollar boondoggle to build spend $180 million building a $40 million high school over there at that beautiful Wild Creek golf course. What a jackhammer boondoggle project. I excoriated, castigated everybody at that meeting at Washoe County. And guess what? Today, they announced that they postponed this thing up until 2022. Now, was I responsible for that? I was the only person who went and adamantly castigated those people, the perpetrators. And just look at the people behind this project, and you can follow the money. You got EDON, it wants this project. You got the developers. You've got the school board. You just figure out who's making money off of this stupid, crazy scheme. There's so many other places you could build that school. I've seen some dumb things in these 25 years, let me tell you, and I've pointed them out. But this is right at the tip top of the dumb things that I've seen, putting that school there. They postponed it to 2022. Did I get any credit for it? No, because the wacko freaks are scared to death of this 160-pound. You ought to be investigating the Reno Gazette. They are traitors to our city. They hate Reno, and they are traitors to our city. They are a public body. They should have to have meetings just like you, so Sam can come down there, see what they're talking about, see what kind of schemes they're doing all over the place. This right here is how they make their money. These public funding things here, and you have to buy this. If you're getting a divorce, going bankrupt, getting married, you have to pay money to the Reno Gazette. That makes them a publicly funded body, and they need to obey the Nevada open meeting law. I demand investigate them right now.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
Madam Vice Mayor, we have no further general public comment today.
Thank you very much. And for the record, the mayor is on her way, so she should be here shortly.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll move on to item A4, the approval of the agenda. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Item B1, presentations. Turn it over to our esteemed city manager.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. This is the continuation of the presentations of each of the departments in preparation for your fiscal year 19 budget. I'm going to turn it over to our finance director, Debbie Lochner, and she will be letting you know what departments are coming up. I'll remind you, though, that we do have this scheduled for today. We have another one scheduled on April 5. Today's meeting is scheduled from 10 to 2. Should we not get through all of the departments, and I expect that we probably won't, we do have the April 5 meeting already reserved on your calendars and scheduled for the rest of whatever we don't get through today.
Good morning. So today we're going to continue our budget discussions talking about the department's core services, their strategic plans, and their program change requests. And then if time permitting, we're going to want to hear from the council's their budget priorities. We want to get through the departments so that you can hear what the services that we provide, and then you can provide us some direction on the budget as we go, as we continue to put it together. So I do want to remind the council that Preliminarily, we are working with a structural deficit of $5.5 million. Just want to put that in context as we go through the various departments. So last time we did hear from police and dispatch. Today we're going to begin with the fire department and then go through our larger departments, our operating departments, down into our administrative departments last. So I won't go through this because there's a lot, but we'll start with our fire department.
Excuse me. Good morning, council members. Dave Cochran, Fire Chief. For the record, I'm going to go through, as Debbie described, our core services, primarily in relation to what we did last year, and then we'll talk about our strategic priorities. And I've answered some questions. I have some information from some questions from the last workshop, and of course, if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer those as well. So just to give you a little background, a little bit redundant, we have 14 fire stations with 17 fire companies that operate in the city of Reno. We're budgeted for 213 line personnel. That translates to a daily staffing of 63 firefighters per day. In 2017, we responded.
Chief, can we interrupt you for
Absolutely.
just a second? I wouldn't interrupt our chief were it not for a esteemed prior mayor in Chambers. If we'd welcome back to the Chambers, Mayor John Griffin. Welcome. Thank you for being here. You get to hang out with us all day? No. he speaks from experience. He knows. Yeah, very good. Welcome. We're glad to see you. Thank you very much. Chief, back to you.
They reacted like that was a threat. So I was saying, we ran over 42,000 calls last year. That was about a 12% increase from 2016. And we've been averaging that about 10, 12% increase annually for a number of years now. Despite that call volume, we've maintained our performance standards in terms of response time. That's utilizing a staffing level that dates back to 1999. As a point of reference, on a per firefighter basis, the New York City Fire Department runs about 120 calls per firefighter. We run over 200 per firefighter. As you know, a couple years ago now, we implemented ALS service, and we're going to continue to expand that project. On May 1, we'll be adding another apparatus, Engine 3, as a paramedic unit. Looking back at 2017, we responded to federal, state, and local, or assisted with federal, state, and local agencies, sent 122 personnel, 25 apparatus to 43 different fires in 7 states. That's in addition to assisting with the hurricanes in St. Croix and Puerto Rico. We also had 2 federally declared disasters here in Reno, one on the Truckee River, the flooding in January, and then of course the flooding in the North Valleys that we're all familiar with. I bring that up because I want to just emphasize that the fire service is a system. You know, we go out and assist these other jurisdictions. Of course, we get paid, we get reimbursed for that, but that's what the expectation that they're going to come back and assist us as well, because it's very important to understand we couldn't possibly, not just Reno, any fire service could not staff up to the level that you would need for, you know, a major high-rise fire, a major wildland fire, something like in Napa or Southern California. It's just not physically possible. So that's why it works as a system, and it's very effective in that system. In 2017, we added 16 new recruits. One thing I'd like to point out, in approximately the past 2 years, we've had 3 fire academies, which translates into almost 50 firefighters. That has not increased our staffing. That has actually just maintained us where we are. In fact, of the 213 budgeted positions that I mentioned, as of April 1, we'll be at 207. So we are just fighting to maintain that level. We're not adding positions. We did conduct a community EMT class this past year in an effort to reach out to the community, to provide them some services that they might not otherwise, or some opportunities that they might not otherwise be able to take advantage of, educate them on what we do, and hopefully expand our recruitment efforts in the community to some of the people who might want to be a firefighter, might consider the option, but just don't know how to get there. And then, of course, the community outreach is a huge part of what we do. You saw the St. Baldrick's group here last council meeting. We assist with the Northern Nevada Children's Cancer Foundation, Moms on the Run, any number of charities throughout the year. It's very important, from my perspective, for the department to have that positive face out there in the community, to be there so that people know we're there. We're not only assisting them, but we're creating that positive message out in the community. So what are our goals? Number one, you can see increased staffing. We haven't increased or added firefighters since 2015. As I mentioned, the total headcount is actually one less than what we had in 1999. That call volume that I mentioned goes up about 12% a year. So our call volume is going up, but our staffing has remained static. Apparatus replacement, that's the second priority. I would call them 1 and 1A, staffing and apparatus, because our apparatus is getting old. We've deferred a lot of replacement because of the downturn in the economy. I understand that. By the end of this year, we'll have 9 engines that will be beyond their useful life. 2 of our 4 trucks are beyond their useful life. All of our reserve apparatus are beyond their useful life. That includes allowing for the extended life that's given to apparatus that are placed in reserve status. I point that out just to highlight how critical the need is for apparatus as well as people. I mentioned we're going to continue to work on expanding our paramedic service. We are hiring, or we're including paramedics in our hiring practice. Ultimately, I would like to extend opportunities for existing firefighters to get their paramedic certification. It's much more beneficial for us to know that we have a solid firefighter that we can train to be a paramedic rather than a new hire. There's always some uncertainty. You know, we go through the hiring process, we do a very thorough job, but you never know exactly what you're going to get. And I think we can all appreciate that in terms of what it takes to sign on and find, locate, hire somebody who's going to be a quality employee for hopefully 20 or 25 years. And then I mentioned the community engagement. Like I said, it's very important for the department to have that positive face out there in the community. The firefighters, I give them a ton of credit. We do a lot as the fire department. They do a lot on their own. They contribute, they donate, they volunteer a ton of their time throughout the year. And I think, and they're recognized as firefighters, but they're doing that on their own time. And I think that's important to recognize. So going on to some of the questions that we had from last meeting. You can see there, our overtime budget is about $1.6 million. That's been pretty consistent through the past several years. That translates into about 243 hours of overtime per day. That's what our average is over the course of the year. It'll go up and down, but you know, on a yearly basis, that's accurate. Reimbursements from off-district assignments, 1.1 million. We average about 160 hours of overtime per day. Let me go back, bump up. We have budgeted 160 hours of overtime a day. We're currently running at about 125 hours. So I want to just point that out because that's that fluctuation that we look at. As summer comes, people are out of school, they're going to take more vacation. We have more off-duty, off-district assignments. That's going to spike that overtime number. So you'll get this ebb and flow. There was a question, I believe, from Councilwoman Jordan about the number of calls per station. This graph shows you on a per station basis how many calls we run. Station 19 runs about a little over 400 calls, 450 calls a month. A year. Station 7 is about twice that, a little over 900 calls per year. We are currently averaging, it's not on that, but we're running about 114 calls a day, which is typical. We run 110 to 120 calls per day. Again, that's going to translate into, if you run that out currently, another 42,000 calls this year. We're not in our busy season yet, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if we beat that number again. I mentioned the calls per firefighter. I'd like to also point out, throughout Nevada, that number that the Reno Fire Department runs, the number of calls per firefighter, far exceeds any other department in the state as well. So I guess in one sense, we're getting more bang for the buck from our firefighters, but it also wears them down. It takes a toll on them. So I don't have it up here, but I believe Councilwoman Brex asked about the lease that was in the budget for this year, and we addressed that last council meeting, the Edison lease for the shop. So
If I may, Madam Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, which lease was
you'd
that?
asked about what the amount was budgeted for the Edison lease, the increase in the budget for the Edison lease, the shop lease.
Oh, that's right. What is that?
You approved that lease
Oh,
last council
okay, yeah, the
meeting.
lease, yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that you'd asked that question, and I think we have it covered now.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the comment in the staff report that they've been good landlords to us.
They have. They've been very good.
Okay.
And then I just put these maps up that show where the stations are in relation to your respective wards, so you could understand which stations are in your wards. I don't know that there was really a question, but it was there for reference in case it pertains to any of the questions that we might have from this point on. So with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you very much. I don't have anything. We'll start with my left, Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. And just a couple quick questions, Chief. Let's see. Station 7 and 19, you've got with just the medical staffing in there. How many calls did we have in those two stations would have serviced for fire calls, or responses for vehicle extractions or things like that they're not equipped to do with those two stations, is just having medical crews in them? How many calls did those two stations draw that we couldn't send them because they're not equipped properly?
So on a percentage basis, we run about 74, 75% EMS calls, and those units respond just to EMS, and that's a safety issue, I think, that you recognize. We're not sending them to fires because they're not equipped. Of course, they are qualified firefighters, so they have their gear. They will go in a support role, but they're not equipped, either the firefighters or the apparatus, for initial attack. So to answer your question, about 80 calls a year of those 400 are going to be 400, talking about Station 19, be double that, 150, 160 or so for Station 7, that the call is beyond the scope of what we think that they can safely handle.
Okay, so they're still responding, so those numbers are still in there, total call numbers there. So they're still responding along with the station that's the first unit for engagement?
They will respond in a support role, yes.
Okay. And then I think thing that sticks out pretty strongly on my mind over the equipment is, I mean, while it's very important that we get some updated equipment, we've still got firefighters living in 2 temporary stations. And the headquarters of our fire department is not even a fire station. We've got all of our command staff in this building disengaged with the firefighters that they supervise on a daily basis, where we used to have the headquarters building. We had that coordination and association of the command staff being with their firefighters. And those are long-term goals that I think this council needs to put some concentration onto. It's not something that's a priority that we're gonna create a bigger hole in the 5.5 we've got now, but it's something we need to be looking at in the future. We don't even own a piece of land to put Station 21 on. We're leasing land for that. So a permanent station to replace the temporary station in 21 is gonna include a piece of property and an appropriate location for that station. So some long-range planning that I hope that our department keeps our eye on and that our city manager gives them assistance in. But, I mean, we've got 2 pup tents in town that are serving as fire stations.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Dewar.
Yeah, thank you. Just real briefly, Mr. McKenzie covered a couple of my points. I'm very concerned about the burnout level that you described in the terms of the calls for service per employee. That is a concern to me. I also know that there's more discussion these days about the hazards that are faced in fires that we probably didn't know about before, in terms of toxic exposure to toxic fumes, materials, and those kind of things. So I know that you guys put a lot of emphasis on safety, but I think the addition of stretching our firefighters to more calls and then the exposure to what they're being exposed to really concerns me. So I guess I'm going to be looking for what are we going to do with our growth in terms of, we have the proposal out at Stonegate, which we talked about extensively, and the plan to potentially look at a SAD. We have proposals for growth out of Verdi, where, we don't have a good response. And then there's a proposal over by Rattlesnake Mountain for another project, which apparently had a fire station. This is over by Butler Ranch. Originally, part of the deal was a fire station slotted there, but when I just had a presentation at my NAB earlier this week, they said that was still really way up in the air. So those are some of the issues that I'm really concerned about: the coverage, the go-forward plan, are we moving on SADs, and kind of the burnout factor. So I don't know if you want to address any of that now, but those are some of the things I'm going to be looking for.
Yes, I would like to address. Thank you for those comments. We in the fire service are becoming much more aware of that burnout factor, the impact that it's having mentally, not just physically. And it does have a physical impact as well. I mean, you see higher workers' comp claims because people are tired, they're getting injured, they're getting stressed out physically. But the fire service is kind of waking up, really, to the fact that it's having a mental impact as well. One of the things that we're doing, again, I'll give credit to firefighters, because we facilitated that, we being administration, but the firefighters put together a peer support group to assist themselves with those kind of issues. The other thing we're doing is we've initiated I'm going to call it a nerve study. We've had a lot of people go out on retirement or die from undiagnosed nerve problems, and our concern is that those are tied to some of these issues you're talking about. Hotter fires, different materials, different chemicals that are burning. So we're looking into that in cooperation with the firefighters as well as the IAFF. Staffing, of course, I didn't mention it. I don't think it's in my presentation. We did ask for 15 new positions, split up half and half over the course of the year. I understand the budget challenges there, but in terms of the step forward and to address Councilman McKenzie's comments, that would give us enough personnel to get Station 7 and Station 19 open with 4 people and a fire engine.
Okay, really good. And then lastly, just we had a presentation earlier, I think it was when Stonegate came up, about the possibility of seeking authorization from the legislature to do a special assessment for fire, similar to what the county has. Cities don't have that now. So I'd like to see it just get placed onto our legislative discussions at the appropriate time, and I'd like you to stay involved in that, because anything we can do to bring some additional revenue specifically to public safety, police or fire, I think would be a great benefit to us and help deal with this $5 million structural deficit, which really worries me a great deal.
And just to comment on that, I have stayed very active and very engaged with those type of issues, communicating with Assemblyman Sprinkle. We like to call him Paramedic Sprinkle. Scott Gillis, of course. And, from my perspective, everything is on the table, of course, consistent with the direction and the wishes of the council.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Delgado. Councilmember Bodzin. Councilwoman Breckus.
I have 2 questions. I don't really see special assessment districts on the horizon. I think that gets in with the property tax fix, and I think that's a bigger, different conversation. But what I would like in the more near term is, as new development comes on, and we have some new things coming on, I presume it's going to be West Meadows and the apartments over there in Verdi coming on. If you could just keep us informed of any operational shifts that you have to make so that we understand, when growth hits, what that does to just daily operations. I would find that very useful. So if I see a subdivision get, final mapped and homes CO, I'd like to know. And I think that's the next area going on where maybe it's in the southeast, but I don't know. And then my colleagues to the left would know this, that we sit on the CDBG committee. And I think we're coming forward with a recommendation to use CDBG for fire apparatus. But I had asked questions and I haven't received an answer on whether or not we can bond out CDBG like we did for the shelter for your replacement program. To me, that's the best option, best worst option that we have in the near term to get you some resources. So I would hope that we're going to be discussing that pretty soon. And I guess the reason is I saw on next week's budget, we're going to be taking on a medium-term debt, I presume for police, but hopefully we have a revenue source pledge to pay for that 911. I really don't want to be at the point of taking on a medium-term obligation for your replacement when we haven't explored all other options. That's a big concern I've been expressing to you. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Breckus. At this time, we have some very special guests in the house. I'm very excited this morning. But we are going to have to take a recess. The clerk tells me to be official, we have to take a quick recess, and then we will resume the council meeting. So at this time, I'm really excited because I remember, obviously being born and raised in Reno and growing up as a little girl here. I had the pleasure of meeting Mayor Griffin, and he is in the house today with his wife celebrating, is it your 50th? Wow, 50 years. That's amazing. So we all need the secret to success. What is that? What is that, Mayor? Do it? Oh. Anyway, okay, so I would love it if you and Marna would come up to the podium. So we're going to go into recess, Madam Clerk, because we have something very special for you.
Okay.
All right, Mayor, it's probably been a while since you read a proclamation.
Yes.
I would love it if you would read this proclamation to your wife.
Oh, gosh.
I'm going to cry.
Whereas Jeff and Marna Griffin, forgive me for a second, proclamations are the one thing the mayor can do and doesn't need anybody's permission. And I remember when Hot August Nights was really going strong, and there was the mayor's car, or the mayor's award, I forget, and one of the media asked me, they said, how do you decide? And I said, well, first of all, they've got to be a registered voter in the city of Reno. And then that calls the list down quite a bit. So anyways, thank you, Mayor. Whereas Jeff and Marna Griffin were married on March 23rd, 1968. And whereas the couple moved to Reno in 1976 to raise a family and start a small business. Whereas they raised their two children, Sarah and Josh, both of whom graduated from Worcester High School and the University of Nevada. And we're not doing that dash or that comma anymore. It's the University of Nevada.
There you go.
And whereas they built and operated Griffin Transport Services, a company that relied on Reno's great business-friendly climate, and whereas Jeff Griffin was elected mayor of Reno in 1995 and served 2 full terms, and whereas Jeff and Marna today celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary, I, Hillary L. Sheevy, mayor of the city of Reno, do hereby proclaim Friday, March 23rd as Jeff and Marna Griffin Day in and for the city of Reno, and encourage all of our citizens to join in honoring their devotion to their family, their business, and to the great city of Reno. It was an enormous pleasure and opportunity for me to serve 2 terms in the city. You guys have continued a marvelous tradition, making the biggest little city in the world the most special city in the world, no longer little.
Aww.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know Councilman Boxian has something for you. Look who's here! Look at this! Get over here!
And now that we have 4 mayors here, I'm getting a little nervous.
Come here, look at this! Look at this!
That's a lot of mayors.
Too many mayors.
Too many mayors.
Too many.
What am I going to do?
Bob was the one that put the consolidation together. I texted you, but I don't know.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
All right, come on, get in here.
No, get on the inside.
On the inside, Pete.
Oh, well, you can,
Okay, this is a lot of potholes, a lot of sewer.
a lot of parks, a lot of riverfront.
You got it? Okay, one more with council, so let's just all move. Oh, but wait. You go right ahead, Councilman.
We'll do that.
Go right ahead.
So we've got one more item for Mayor Jeff here. And this is a fun one for me because when I moved here just about 21 years ago, you were the mayor. And so it's wonderful to have you as part of our Reno 150 project as we're celebrating the sesquicentennial of the city of Reno. So what we are presenting you with today is a Reno People Award. So as part of the sesquicentennial of Reno, we have been, over the last year, recognizing individuals who have significantly contributed to our city. In all, we will honor 150 people for our 150 years, and you are going to be one of them. Well, we're working through here. The committee selected you as a Reno People honoree for your dedicated commitment to our city as mayor. As many know, you were the leading force behind the Downtown Retrack project, which took the railroad tracks that previously dissected downtown and put them in the underground tunnel and in the trench. This project was a key turning point for our city and has since created a more cohesive downtown, allowing for the blossoming of arts and culture in the area, another priority focus of yours as you were mayor. With the Reno People Award, we recognize these contributions and we thank you for your dedication to the biggest little city. So you get another piece of a very important paper, and more importantly, this is a fun one. This is wearable. You get a Reno 150 medal. So. Now, we know that you're having a good time up there in Oregon. Sisters is a wonderful community, but if you can make it back down, is it May 9th? May 9th is our bringing it home. Yeah, May 9th, we're doing a big party at the Greater Nevada Field.
We're retired.
You know, if you could make it down for a little baseball, Sisters does not have baseball. I know that. So if you can make it back down for May 9th, we are doing our culminating party at the Greater Nevada Field, and we're hoping to have all of our Reno 150 people honorees at that event. So thanks and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Welcome. Hillary, can I just make a comment about the railroad project?
Please.
Just a comment about the railroad project. I see familiar, not old faces, familiar faces. That whole project is vivid in my mind, but the statistic that really, and actually I'm still healing some of the wounds from it. But just to give you an idea what it takes to move a city, and I know you have a very, very intimate grasp of that, it took 5 years and 500 meetings to get that project approved. So I know how hard it is. I give you all my greatest praise. People who put themselves out for this kind of public service deserve the enthusiastic appreciation of everyone in the community. So congratulations to you and to the mayor and to my predecessors and successors who made so much happen in the downtown. And downtown redevelopment would not have started if it hadn't been for Pete Saraza getting that whole project started along the riverfront. And so he and I and Bob all know what it's like to try and accomplish something in the wonderful city of Reno. So thank you so much. Thanks.
I would like to make just one comment, and that is, the whole time that Jeff was in office, I was always bugged by the condition of the parking garage, the downtown parking garage. And I used to say to Charles, who was supposed to be here today but couldn't make it, can't we clean up that parking garage? Well, yesterday, we parked in the parking garage, and it's all white and painted and lit up, and I thought, did you do that? You did that. It was a woman's touch. I can tell you. So thank you.
Okay, well, I'd love to have a picture with all of council, so let's all move up here and take a picture. Okay.
Come on, I'm gonna go over and take a picture.
Ready, 1, 2.
All right, we have some cake and some bubbly, the red kind of bubbly, out in the foyer. So if any of you would like to join the Griffins, I'm sure they would really appreciate it.
Well, the question really is that my favorite dessert, and someone I know, probably Barbara needs to know, let loose, that my favorite dessert are chocolate chip cookies. So I'm hoping that there'll be chocolate chip cookies out there. What do you want?
All right, thank you for being here.
All right, we are going to call this meeting out of recess, back to order. And Madam Manager, can you direct us as to where we are?
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. We are onto our next department, which is Public Works. So I will call Mr. John Flansburgh up to give the presentation.
All right, good morning. There is no other department in the city that the public interfaces with more on a daily basis than with Public Works. From the time you wake up in the morning, shower or bathe, prepare breakfast, you are relying on the infrastructure to take the sewage away, to be treated. You probably don't put much thought into what happens to the collective sewer flows from homes and businesses, but we do. When you leave your house, to go to work or take children to school or go shopping, you are most likely driving on city-owned streets. The school zone flashers alert you to where children are present. The striping, crosswalks, street signs, traffic signals, all of these guidance and traffic control devices help traffic to move in an orderly way. We keep the core of downtown clean, enforce the metered parking to ensure reasonable turnover for businesses, and patrol the university parking district so adjacent residents have adequate street parking. We also take care of abandoned vehicles, which is the #1 call from Reno Direct. On snowy days and nights, we plow the arterial and collector streets to provide convenient and safe travel. On major snow days, we ensure these main routes are available for emergency response for our police, fire, and ambulance services and coordinate accordingly. Unfortunately, public works may be thought of more when someone sees a pothole or debris on a street that hasn't been swept, or when they are stopped by a traffic light instead of the previous green lights that helped them on their way. It is easy to take what we do for granted because we take care of it behind the scenes and hopefully without drawing attention to ourselves. We are noticed when you come into a construction zone and have a delay. In special events, we are not the center of attention, but we set up and remove the traffic controls that keep the participants safe and direct traffic to where the streets are open for travel. We assist all departments in one way or another. For our internal customers, we purchase and maintain the vehicles and equipment that they need to perform their duties, with the exception of fire. We also provide maintenance to all the city's buildings. Again, we may only be thought of when a room is too hot or too cold, or when the paper towel dispensers run out in the bathroom. We plan, we design, we coordinate with other utilities on their work. We oversee the construction and rehabilitation of the city's infrastructure, and once in a while, we get to celebrate with a ribbon cutting for a new bridge or a park improvement. We are proud of the work we do, and I'm proud to represent the men and women of the Public Works Department and sharing with you some of the things that we do. For our strategic plan in this planning session, I want to talk a couple things that are I think are pretty exciting. For one, the neighborhood street program. As you may recall, in 2009, there was a 10-year medium-term bond that was put out for doing an accelerated street program. During the recession, it was thought that if we could go and bond for some of those street improvements, we'd be able to take advantage of some low prices with not a lot of work out there. And we were able to do that, and we were able to get a fair amount of projects built. Unfortunately, I mean, we knew going into it that was good for the short term, but then we had 5 years or so where we didn't have a lot of work that was happening as we're paying those bonds back. I'm happy to report that for fiscal year 19, we are looking to fund about $13 million, which is up from about 6.5. In fact, I have a graph, if I can get the overhead. So you can see 13, 14, 15, it was pretty small. The light blue is actually the Virginia Street Bridge construction, and 16, why it was higher. But you can understand why I'm a little more enthused now coming into 19 and what we project going forward in the last 6 bars, where we'll have more than $12 million a year for our street capital projects. The street cap, just take a little moment to look at that. You're looking back on the far left, you're looking from fiscal year 04, 05, kind of the general funding, we were about $5.5 million, bumped up to about $7 million or so, a little bit of increase. In 09, we did the 10-year medium-term bond. Obviously, it took a little bit of time, so not till fiscal year 10 that you really saw the projects coming in, 11 and 12. And then, of course, once the bond funding had been spent, now doing the debt service of about $6.5 million a year, we had smaller projects. The Virginia Street Bridge construction in the blue, a lot of those funds, as you know, came from the flood project, from NDOT, and from RTC. But I think we have a reason to celebrate going forward in fiscal year 19 and on, because we're going to be able to get up to a program about 12 plus million a year for those capital projects. And then just to get a look at what that means, about 8 million in our neighborhood streets renewal, 3.5 in our preventative program, and then some of the other programs that are funded out of the CIP. But primarily, that's a lot of work going into the streets. It means we're going to go from like 1 street unit to up to 3 street units. In addition, we're going to be able to leverage our sewer fund collection system improvements. And as we go into those neighborhoods and we're doing major street work, those areas that also need to have major sewer work done, we'll combine those projects and leverage that to even get more work completed. If we can go back to the presentation. Readiness for growth, sewer capacity. So both in the Truckee Meadows and in the North Valleys. In fact, at the next council meeting, you have a item for some work that we're doing in the central south area of Reno that will allow us to increase capacity for that area. Those are in the collection system project, and then in North Valleys, you'll be seeing one of your April meetings, you'll be seeing the contract for the sewer plant expansion coming forward. So as we see that growth coming and making sure that we're ready. Effluent reuse strategies. We've had a lot of discussion in North Valleys in regards to the flooding and what to do up there. We've been working since 2008 on different strategies, methods that we can employ for treatment of the effluent that allow us to inject and do other processes, give us more flexibility in how we handle that effluent. We'll be continuing on those so that we're ready when we have for additional flows in the North Valleys that we can handle those. And then obviously our flood resilient projects. And we've had a lot of discussion here, and I don't think I need to go into too much detail on what the priority is for us there. One thing that you've heard, because we presented it to you, but has been that we're definitely seeing coming full bore at us is the small cell technology. We've been working with the different cell providers since we received some guidance from City Council on what that will look like going forward, but they want to come in and they want to come in a big way. And so we expect to see a lot of plans coming in, a lot of fiber being run between these because they need to run fiber between their where they put the small cell. And again, that's that presentation we gave where we showed integrated light poles and things like that where they would actually house their antennas and their equipment. Vision Zero has been a priority of this council and will continue to be. And as we have the regional group getting together, working with RTC and our other partners, we'll be certainly continuing the work that we've done there, installing those types of improvements that will improve the traffic safety. And then finally, the business improvement district. Our role currently has been the downtown maintenance. We know that will continue this next year. We don't know what's going to turn there, but obviously we'll be doing everything we can to ensure success with the business improvement district. Those are our main goals and items that we'll be working on this year. Be happy to take any questions.
Councilwoman Breckus, I'm going to start with you. Neighborhood street budget, where it has the $12 million that we're going to be spending a year. No, the other one. I had the item, yeah. I mean, here's the point in the budget proceedings where I discuss that I don't see any more revenue coming to the city of Reno from the state of Nevada. I think that's a wish and a prayer that, we can all be hanging around hoping for. And so this is the time where you look at that $12 million that we know those are mostly, not all, but there is flexibility in there to use those funds for other purposes. Mr. McKenzie talked about the fire station needs that we have. And also following on Mr. Church's comments where we know 30 or 40 cents out of every gallon of gas is going to the RTC, where if there was some consideration that RTC money, which is money for Washoe County, should be able to be used for transportation needs broadly in Washoe County, could be diverted to the city of Reno to do some of these. Of course, it's going to short other priorities, but then the city of Reno would have money to fill our other gaps. And every year I bring this up, and I think that it's time to start giving that stronger consideration. It's not a fun option, but it is an option on the table that I think we need to look at all the regional money on the table and think about, it all as one pot and the ability to feed Reno's needs. What in there is just street override money?
So the majority of the revenue source is actually the street override from property tax.
Is that the neighbor 8?
And
The
we
8?
don't, again, this is not the revenue, this is our proposed expenditure side
Sure,
for the street fund.
sure. But at least the 1.5 million a year of the Tumwa toll is totally in our,
It is, but I caution you with that, because when that came over to the street fund, it came over, and I've mentioned this in past presentations.
yeah.
When it came over, it also came over with the expense of the power for the street lights
Sure.
that we pay to NV Energy, which is not an allowable, either the override or the gas fuel tax. That expenditure
Sure.
is not, so that, although we came up with a different funding source, the majority of that was what came over with the expense of the streetlights.
Well, just for demonstration purposes, how much of this 12 million could go to other sources from the city of Reno?
Not a lot. I mean, it would be the difference on the toll from what is received versus what those expenditures for the street.
Nothing in here is
lights.
general fund.
Nothing is general fund. This is all street fund.
Okay, okay. The other issue is, I have last year's CIP here, and, you know, I had asked that on the sewer fund side, that we be a little more specific so we know what projects we can expect. And I'm just looking, we don't have a copy of next year's markup, the 18-19 markup, but I would hope that we could get a little more detailed, and I'll just share with the council why that is I've just stunned in the last week to hear that in a part of Ward 1 block off Virginia Street, there is an apartment complex that cannot be constructed right now because there's not sewer capacity in the collection system to allow that development to be built. So since 2002, 2004, we've had our goal of infill transit corridors, and it just hasn't been syncing up to our infrastructure spending. If now we're seeing development pressure into the very core of our city. I mean, Linden Street, Grove, Yorrie, that's the core of the city of Reno, and we don't have sewer capacity. Likewise, another building there that's already existing cannot be hooked up and occupied. So now we're in this rush situation, and I feel like if I had, if the sewer could just tell us where the shortages are a little bit more, so that the council can see and understand in the public if that's balancing with our other objectives and land use policies and goals. So can we get a CIP that's maybe a little more specific where the collection system's going to need to be projects in this FY?
So we do have that information, and it'll be on the
CIP. Okay, so where are you showing the sewer lines? Central and South System, Reno's 5 and 6
South Reno 5 and 6
Okay.
capacity project. And then we have some of our general items that we do. We have the Golden Valley Buck Lift Station replacement. Stead Boulevard is a interceptor replacement, so work will begin on that. So we do have locations that are actually listed with where we are spending time and effort. And you mentioned the Yorrie, Linden general area. We completed the Grove Street sewer replacement projects. We've been doing other projects through there for the last 7-8 years, lining and other things to try to increase capacity, so we didn't have like infiltration in high water areas, high groundwater areas. We just and you'll be seeing next week at your council meeting the award of the work that it'll take to increase the capacity in that area. So it wasn't like we just became aware of it. We've known about it. We've been doing incremental projects, and then we have this is the large fix project.
Yeah, trial and
That
error.
doesn't just come up in, we don't figure in 6 months and do it. It's something we've been planning on for a little bit of time.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Bobzian? Nothing? Councilwoman Dewar?
Yeah, thank you. Just a few quick questions. The 12 million, so where is this coming from? I mean, I'm a little confused. Given the shortfall, how do we have more money for CIP?
Well, we just paid off the house.
Okay,
So the house mortgage is paid.
fantastic.
And we're going to get $6.5 million a year back to put into projects.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. What's that?
Good example.
It was, thank you. Question I had was, you said in your goals that you were going to, I thought, start working on well, maybe it's not here, maybe I saw it somewhere else. I thought you said you were gonna start working on, oh, here it is, the irrigation ditches, the flood resilience projects. So are you, planning to, how are you planning to fund that? Some of this, or?
So in in the sewer fund is where we fund the flood and the, sewer capacity, reuse, resilience projects. Those all come out of the sewer fund. In the specific to irrigation ditches, Truckee River and North Valleys, we are putting together a list of those projects that we feel are the critical ones, or the larger ones, I should say, for flood protection and resilience. And we'll be bringing back that plan with you. We have been asked by the council here, and I presented previously, that depending on what happens with the ballot question in November, we want to be poised and ready to decide, okay, if we're going to go this way, then we're going to have, this is where we're at. If we're not, is there something City of Reno can do to help us?
Okay, so you had at one time shared with me something like $100 million study that you had just in the south quadrant for flood improvements, stormwater improvements.
Yeah, I think actually that would have been Truckee River, would have been some, and then improvements along the southwestern area of the city.
That's what I'm talking about. So are you gonna update that?
Correct. We're going to be
Study
updating that and actually looking for, trying to take it from more of a conceptual level to a feasibility level.
Okay.
And because we really need to zero in on what the costs are. In addition to that, we're also looking at the North Valleys and what are the things we can do up there. And really, North Valleys is, a lot of that is tied together both in the flood resilience side of things, stormwater volume mitigations, the effluent that goes to Swan Lake, both from City of Reno and Washoe County treatment plants, and what kind of flexibility we can work with that component of the water that goes into the lake.
Well, two or three more things. One, you obviously, your work does not go unnoticed. Even our former mayor's wife noticed your work in the garage. So, so people do notice what you guys do. I've also gotten huge praise about you guys from the paving of the baseball lot down there at Moana Springs. People continue to talk about that. So I think that, last year's flood work, people figured it out, that it was you guys, so.
But we just like to go about our work and just take care of it.
I know that, but it does not, people do notice. And I just wanted to, one more thing on this stormwater, or excuse me, a different topic. At Tumwa yesterday, was it yesterday? Lost track. There was a discussion of, we asked Tumwa staff to do an inventory in the North Valleys on all of, basically a mini hydrologic inputs to understand the infiltration that's happening, the sewer discharge that's happening, any movement in basins, and they're supposed to come back to us with a report. So I wanted to make sure that you knew about that.
Okay.
And it's something that, was definitely specifically asked to be on the agenda going forward. So thanks for everything that you guys do. And for me personally, the work that you do on the neighborhood street program, I feel like I spend 50% of my time as a councilwoman working with people on street things, not just patching, but the slowing, the stoplights, stop signs, the PedEx
Sidewalks,
crossings. And another shout out, I just learned this week that you lowered the speed on a portion of Steamboat Parkway, which I think will really help in safety down there. So those are the kind of things that I have the most interaction with your department on, it seems, and kudos to you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Don, what kind of overtime's the guys in your department working?
It's really dependent on year by year. 2-3 years ago, we had very little overtime because a lot of that's driven by our snow and ice response. Last year, of course, with the flood fighting, we had a lot much higher. I can certainly get those numbers. I don't have them on top of my head. This year, we're trending about what I'd say more average year.
And are those hours driven mostly by event, or is there a manpower issue that you have to work overtime for coverage?
So most of our overtime comes in special events. So throughout the summer, because we have a lot of folks that are going out, setting up the detours, We may have a few people patrolling during the events and then pulling everything out after the event. So that's a whole separate subset of overtime. Otherwise, majority of it is event-driven. Is there some work that we would be able to get more done if we had more staffing? Of course. Are we working a lot of overtime to meet getting the school zones ready before school, those types of things? We typically just put more resources on that, make sure it gets done, and then we backfill with other work on other times. But no, we don't have a lot of dedicated overtime from any of our maintenance and operations groups in the work they're doing. Now, the one area that we have more overtime than any other, it would be our facility maintenance technicians. And that's the area that we're the most depleted in manpower.
Okay. And,
And we do put in overtime to come in and make sure that the PMs are getting done at weekends, and then we have a lot of special requests for whether we're doing a minor remodel or things like that at various buildings.
And I know the guys were out the night before our big snowstorm, and people were probably giggling about them sitting out there in those snowplows waiting, but they were sure glad that they were the next morning when they need to go to town. My next question's on these small cell technology, and we've got a major problem across the country with these carriers are trying to circumvent our authorities and go to state and federal levels and try to preempt us so that they can do whatever they want. I call out kind of to our lobbying groups that we need to stay in front of that. But one of the things one of the reasons that they're getting traction in a lot of areas is because there's no guidance by local government about how they can do it. And because local government hasn't moved fast enough to allow them to go, they're getting traction with federal and state officials that they need to have the ability to preempt us. So I would urge that we move forward with that ordinance as soon as we can so that we can, they don't have that challenge to us when they ask to preempt our authority.
On that particular subject, if I could address it, just a real shout out to Charla Honey and Travis Truehill. They've really put a lot of work in working with the various carriers. We brought them all in and are having ongoing meetings with all of the carriers together, not just separately, so they can try to cherry pick us, but all getting everybody together and really understanding their business. And what I've seen is our rates that we're looking to charge that we've come up with, I think are very reasonable. Some agencies have not had that reasonableness, I would say, in how they put the rates together. The second hurdle that we had to overcome, and we finally have made that with this group, was to work with NV Energy on taking over maintenance of certain of their street lights that will allow then the carriers to put on their equipment in new poles, whatever that they need to do. But if we didn't have control, then NV Energy was becoming one more layer of the process that was inhibiting them from moving. And so taking that on, and that's what our proposal has been going forward, was through collection of fees to help pay for some additional staffing that will allow us to then maintain those street lights that as the carriers come in and do that. And we're not talking about 100. We're talking about maybe 2,500 when they get their total area built out.
And then one last thing, regardless of what the ballot question does, the Truckee Meadow Flood's putting forward, we're not going to get any help for our flooding issues. The only place that's going to be is for the river. I don't foresee in the near future us getting any assistance. So I think we need to move forward for the stormwater issues that we have with the irrigations and dishes in South Reno and the stuff in the North Valleys. We've talked several times about stormwater utility districts instead of using our sewer funds to do that, dedicating our stormwater funds to setting up districts so we can have dedicated funding for those, and then getting those projects online as soon as we can so we can start implementing impact fees and stuff to offset the cost of doing those projects, because we're not going to get any help from anybody else. We're going to have to do it ourselves. And I don't see FEMA giving us any money or anybody else. I don't even think we're going to see federal money for it in the near future. So, I mean, we need to identify what we need to do, figure out how we're going to form those districts and get them going as soon as possible, because This isn't a problem that's going away. And, I mean, we've got a lot of agencies out there taking shotgun approaches at trying to figure out what the problem is. I kind of, myself, have a problem with that. We ought to all be working together rather than Tumwa doing one thing, Western Regional Water doing something else, us doing something else, Washoe County doing something else. We should all be working together to address these issues. And we've got that planning board that is a non-formal group that's kind of planning on that stuff. I think you're probably a member of it.
Well, there's a staff working group, and then there's the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission. That's the technical advisory group to Western Region Water Commission.
So, I mean, we need to all be working together on this, because this shotgun approach of everybody directing every agency that they belong to do some kind of an investigation into this is we've got to compile all that information and move forward. And I don't know whether that belongs under regional planning or the Western Regional Water. It belongs somewhere that we need to compile that all so we can all work together and come to a solution to this, because North Valleys has got to be a cooperative plan with us in the county. And there's a lot of South Reno's going to have to be cooperative. The stuff out in Verdi that those people are dealing with out there has got to be cooperative between us and the county. So, but the base of that is that we've got to get some funds coming for stormwater that's dedicated to that, so that we can move forward with projects to fix the problems that we're facing right now. And I went around the North Valleys before I came to town this morning, and those people are underwater again. And they're probably not very happy. We'll hear from them next meeting. It's a wonder they're not here today. So, thank you, John.
Councilwoman Dewar,
Yeah.
quick.
I will, and I want to just support Councilwoman McKenzie in that. That's where I was going. I stopped at my time. But I just wanted to say that back in 2008, Sparks adopted the $5.41 for stormwater management fee dedicated, and I really think we need to consider something like that. They've done it. Why would we not do it? And we have these problems all over. We've got to begin somewhere. And that's what I really was going to ask you was, what is our plan for standing up some kind of a stormwater management utility this year? And I'll just say my second question was, a lot of times I have walked through the garage, and some of the staff have told me that, or your own staff, that cleaning, let's say the elevators or whatever, was not quite in the maintenance contract. And I wondered, it was apparently just a little bit of a shortfall. I wondered if you could try to do that this year, is to put that, it was like 30,000 or something like that.
We have addressed that in our budget request.
Okay, that's great. And then the stormwater?
And the stormwater, we have set aside $500,000 as the beginning for the stormwater utility study overall.
Okay, and that
If you recall, I think we said we believe that's going to be about $1 million effort overall.
Okay, and that might then have an outcome for a funding option?
Yes.
Okay,
Wait,
thank you.
Could I just, Councilwoman Brett, where is that? I didn't see that in your budget slides.
That was not a capital improvement project. That was in the environmental engineering section of our budget under one of the outside services, other like consultant agreements
Okay.
where we do studies.
Do we have that in our budget binder?
I doubt it.
Okay, so that would, I feel like some of the stuff if it's a throwaway, like, hey, we're doing this, is like, well, where is that? Because I've been reading everything. I have a binder set up. Where is that?
Mr. Flansburgh, is that one of your program expansions, or is it just budgeted for in the regular budget?
It's, instead of being a capital improvement program, it's actually in one of the program budgets, environmental engineering.
Are we going to get a list out of all of those program items?
So
Do we
you
have that?
received at a previous meeting all of the expansion items. There was that
Okay.
large sheet.
Oh,
Yep,
this
that
one.
right there. Yes.
Okay. So where was that was,
So that may not be in there, but if it isn't, then we will track it down and get it to you.
so this has been updated since we last got this? Or is
No.
it technology?
I don't believe that there have been any additions. Finance,
Works.
any additions since we last? No.
So it wasn't an expansion like a program change request, if that's what you're referring to. It was more within our programs, current programs.
Okay, I mean, that was the issue that I've kind of been bringing up, is sometimes I feel like the public works stuff is bundled too much to really understand what's going on
It's
and
complicated.
and what our priorities are. And I understand that. But I guess, just be good to take some of these buckets, slice them down so that we can have confidence that that the priorities we're setting are being fulfilled. Like, if infill and, not letting the core fall apart is a goal, then if I can look in the collection systems and see, we are taking care of the older part of town, not just, other parts for capacity, then, can point to people when they say, hey, I can't get a building permit in the center of town. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
So our next department will be Parks, Recreation, and Community Services.
All right.
Morning.
Take it away.
All right. So the first few slides are just trying to give you a scope of what we do every day and the reach that we have within the community. So I'll try to go through this quickly because I know I'm the one who's standing between you and a sandwich, so I will try to be quick on this. So our core main services, park maintenance is obviously one of the largest. We have 87 parks with many different amenities in the different parks. The key ones are there's 54 restrooms, 78 playgrounds, and 264 acres of turf that we manage. We also manage 1,900 acres of open space, which contains 16 miles of maintained trails. In urban forestry, we have around 19,000 public trees that we are responsible for. We prune roughly about 1,400 trees each year, which is about 72% of our target that we'd like to prune. Really excited, our ratio of trees planted versus removed, we're nearly 1 for 1. If you'll remember, a few years ago, for every tree planted, we were taking down about 7 trees. So huge improvements over the past few years with a great crew there. We also do recreation centers. We have 6 recreation centers and historical buildings, 19 parks, shelters that we rent out. We have 27,000 visits to our recreation center. That does not include seniors, because we'll talk about that in a second. And then we do about 1,400 facility rentals at these facilities. We have 4 pools, 2 indoor, 2 outdoor. The core of why we build these pools is for swimming lessons. Last year, we did just over 1,600 swimming lessons, and that was with 2 pools closed, so we imagine that this will dramatically increase next year. We have about 2,000 people who go there for water fitness, and then for the open swim, lap swim, we have over 40,000 people that visit our pools every single year. Again, we go into our youth recreation programs. The largest program there is our before and after school Sierra Kids program. We have nearly 54,000 registrations every single school year for this program. That equates to about 800 kids every single day that we're responsible for their care and well-being, for their enrichment, and trying to help them out in school. We also do summer and school break camps. Just over 7,600 people attend those week-long camps. Going on into our seniors, we do a lot of just senior fun recreational programs, senior games, senior trips, dinners, and a show. We have over 6,000 people attend those recreational programs. Seniors are by far our largest segment that use our facilities, and just the drop-in visits alone just from seniors to our recreation centers is almost 48,000 visits each year. We have therapeutic recreation programs. We do 9 adaptive programs, which 4 of them are specific to veterans. And these are veterans who are disabled or have some sort of injury while during their service. It's truly life-changing programs that take place there. We do inclusion for our youth programs to make sure that all kids can attend our programs regardless of a disability or maybe some behavioral issues. We do adult athletic programs. We do softball, kickball, volleyball leagues. 6,000 people participate in those. And the key with our athletics program is we do 30 tournaments. The majority of those tournaments are regional tournaments, which means people are coming from outside of Reno to participate and use our facilities, which creates room nights. So that's a very critical thing that we do. And then finally, we have a section, because we are, like everyone else, we struggle with resources. We have a strong force trying to create our own resources through grants and volunteers. I'm pleased to announce that this past year, we raised over $1.1 million in just grant funding for our capital projects and also for some of our programming. Volunteer hours, just over 5,000 this past year, which for us is about a manpower value of $122,000. And then kind of the final thing is we do provide scholarships. We want everyone in our programs regardless of their ability to pay. So we offer roughly about 500 programs to seniors and to youth, which that values nearly $340,000 to participate in our programs. So finally, kind of our big goals and focuses, succession planning, just like every other department in the city. Within the next 5 years, we are going to see a large number of retirements. So it's important for us to be prepared for that, to make sure that we have passed on the knowledge that is currently within the department. And number one is we need to improve our park maintenance. We struggle. We are still, I tell people we're still within the recession in Parks and Recreation. There has been no change from the downturn in terms of position that we have received. We are very concerned, as is everyone, of the growth demands versus our ability to maintain it. This list here is for just this coming year. We have Somerset West Park that will be coming online this summer. We have Mayor's McAdelen Park that we're working on a master plan, which will lead to development and enhanced use of that park. The downtown dog park is well on its way. It's coming to you in the next few meetings to start construction. Again, that will be an intensive area for us to maintain. Cyan Park is a large park in South Reno that we are taking over the responsibilities for maintenance this year. Sierra Vista Park, the old North Gate Golf Course, will open this summer. And then, of course, Moana Springs Pool. So when you combine those, this is almost nearly 300 additional acres for us to maintain. Currently, right now, with our park standards, we meet about 48% of our parks meeting those standards. That is up from about 43% a few years ago, so we've improved it. But when you add 300 acres, not only will that decrease, but the new parks we're opening will not be what we would like them to be within weeks to months of them opening, just because we can't keep up. And just a simple graph to kind of show where we are in terms of park maintenance. That, I don't know, what color is that? Turquoise blue line shows our developed acres. And then the line shows our full-time equivalents per 100 acres that is developed. You can see we are roughly about halfway of what we feel our standard is 7.5 to meet our standards for park maintenance. That's what we would need, and we're roughly about halfway there. So
The blue is the demand?
So the blue is the developed acres that we're responsible for. And then you can kind of see our standard line there at 7.5 full-time equivalents. And then, of course, you see our bar graph of where we've been over the past few years. And I would also add this is full-time equivalents. This is not full-time staff. This includes part-time, temporary, seasonal staff as well, which are key for us to maintaining our parks. With that, I'll answer your question. That's it.
Great job. So I just want to commend you because I know you have a huge force of volunteers, and they are so dedicated. And look at the money that you save by doing that. You guys are always like thinking out of the box, right?
We're very blessed in this community. There's a lot of great nonprofits that look to help, and there's just a lot of people who come together and say, let us help you. So without them, we would be in even worse shape. So we're very grateful for that.
But you guys really love what you do, and you can tell you're very passionate about it. Like when I talk to you guys personally, Jamie, we still miss you upstairs, but I know that you love doing what you do. So, I mean, it really comes out in everything you guys do. And you've done so well with very little. I mean, we've known that we're still playing catch up from all these years. So you have not had an easy job. And parks is really hard. I mean, there's a lot of people that want more pools. There's a lot of people want more parks, more, walkability, all these, different things. And it gets really hard to manage. I still would like to see an ice skating rink. But I'm not gonna ask for that, because we're gonna stick to pools and soccer fields and things like that. But what I also love about what you guys do is you do so much for the seniors. And I'm so grateful for that, because it's so needed in the community, and you guys have done a tremendous job, like with your grants and things like that for seniors that could never afford to come and participate in senior games and things like that. So I just want you to know you guys are amazing, so thank you. And April Wolf, unbelievable.
We have a lot of unsung heroes. Our staff
You're not kidding.
is very quiet, and
And
they-
you're
and
all
they
very
just-
humble,
they
you
just do
never
their
say
job, and-
anything, you never complain, you guys are just absolutely tremendous, you're right. So thank you, your leadership truly stands out. So I'm gonna ask each council member, because I know we're gonna wrap it up, because there's a few of us that have to leave. So I'm gonna start with you, Councilwoman Breckus, and keep it to 3 minutes. But what I was also thinking, in the next budget meeting, if you could come back, and then we might have more questions, if that's okay with you. Okay, I'm gonna start with you, Councilwoman Breckus.
The parks that are coming on, some of those you said will be our responsibilities. Are those Somerset West and Cyan?
All those parks will be our responsibility except for Somerset
Okay,
West.
so Somerset, the development agreement had it that,
The HOA will take care of the maintenance of those parks. Now, we will be responsible for like the capital replacements as it goes, but in terms of the actual maintenance, the HOA takes care of just that. Besides that, the rest of them are on us and our staff to manage.
why do you think the Cyan Park, which was approved at the plan unit development stage after Somerset, did not require the HOA, but Somerset did? You would think that we'd be moving in a direction of,
I can't answer. I wasn't part of those
You weren't involved,
negotiations,
okay.
but I will say we pushed very strongly. Stonegate's a good example with anything coming on new that the HOA maintain. Now, the developer can, of course, reject that, and
Yeah.
it's up to negotiation at that point, but
Well-
that's always
well,
our strong.
Actually, the developer can't reject anything. The council's who rejects
Yes.
things, yeah. We're in charge. Thanks.
Councilman Babsey.
Well, Councilwoman Breckus took my one question. Thank you for the clarification on the maintenance responsibilities of the West Somerset Park. I'm definitely excited about that. It's going to be a great addition. Had just seen that there was reference of the collaboration between the homeowners association and the city. So it was my intention. I just want to get that clarified, that similar to the other parks in that area, that's how the maintenance happens on that. Staffing update on after-school programs.
In terms of the
Where are we with?
Well, so we've been working, and you've been integral of that part. We've been working with the school district to improve that relationship and improve our relationship with the individual schools to expand our programs, to make them world-class and the best they can possibly be for the students. So Dale Feemster's position, we have made an offer, and it's the person should start here at the end of April. So we're moving forward on that.
Okay, great to hear. Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. The downtown dog park, my understanding was that the group that is helping to fund that was also assisting with some of the ongoing maintenance of that park as well.
They have volunteered to do some maintenance, but with all volunteer groups, until there's agreement in writing, we assume that it will be on us. We know that they will help us, and we look forward to that, but in terms of overall maintenance, we will certainly be responsible. We'll still be making daily visits there and making sure that it's up to snuff. So
Okay.
it will be a collaboration.
Okay, thank you.
I had a similar question to my first two colleagues, which was about the us versus them in terms of maintenance. And Daybreak just came forward, and they said at their at the NAB meeting that they were going to have the HOA maintain the parks. One question there that came up at the NAB was that we thought that and I say we, but they thought that the amount of parks per number of units was very much on the small side. So it's just something I would ask you to look at. And then when you come back next time, what I'd like to ask you about is the Moana Pool. Like, what do you see happening this year? And then the other thing is, you didn't have Robin Hood on as it's not a new park, but it's a rebuild. And I know that Jeff said he was going to start the planning in next FY, which is August. So I just want to make sure that stays on the list.
It's certainly on the list. It's just not a new area
No.
that we will be adding.
Right,
yes,
but I mean, it's
there.
going to be probably a pretty big rebuild, so.
Yes, it's there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I want to thank you guys for the work you're doing on the Mayor's Park master plan. With our master plan meeting the other night, you guys have done a lot of work and gone a long ways. It's kind of disheartening that we had such low neighborhood participation in the meeting the other night. Hopefully, we can get some more at the next NAB meeting. But when we were tracking legislation last session, I remember a bill about park districts. Did that bill pass?
It did.
So have we looked at our ability to utilize that to establish the park districts and maybe come up with some funding for maintenance of parks around?
We certainly have not done a deep dive analysis of it. We know that we have that ability, but that would be the next step, is to see how that would all come together.
Okay, we're all we're all disheartened that we haven't got money to improve the park maintenance, and Jeff does a really good job with what he has, and it's a testament to the people we have working in our Parks Department that we get as much done as we do with what as little we have, and we have a great community willing to support it. But I think that's a tool of, if you're a mechanic and you buy a brand new snap-on ratchet and it never comes out of your toolbox, you wasted your money. So I think that we need to look at any tool we can use.
Certainly.
All right, Councilmember McKenzie, did anyone else? Then we're gonna wrap up this meeting. Do we have any public comment, Madam Clerk?
Madam Mayor, we have no public commenters left in the audience.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm gonna hand it to you. Go right ahead, make the motion. So I have a motion from Councilmember McKenzie to adjourn and a second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimous.